Well, hello, class. And here we are for another history and geography lesson. I wanted to go over briefly the Great Lakes. Do you know which one's which? I'm going to try to zoom in here. You see that okay? It's not too blurry. What is that one? Number 3 is, did you say Lake Superior? Good job. How about this one here? What's that one? Did you say Lake Michigan? And see how you have Michigan? That's the state of Michigan. And so that's Lake Michigan. Number 5 is Lake Huron. Then we go down to Lake Erie. And then up here to Lake Ontario. Okay, let's try it again. Lake Superior, Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, Lake Erie, Lake Ontario. Again, Lake Superior, Lake Michigan, Lake, what's that one? Huron, Lake Erie, Lake Ontario. Okay. Lake Superior, Lake Ontario, Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, Lake Erie. Know those, know these. The Mississippi River, the, what's this one? Missouri River, the Ohio River. These are the Rocky Mountains. These are the Appalachian Mountains, right through near where we are, okay? All right, so make sure you know the geography and study those and play this again if you need to practice. And we have these. You need to know the locations of each of these colonies. And when you have your next test, you need to know where they are. So if there weren't any words here, could you do it? New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. Today, when we have our lesson, we're going to focus on this. Pay attention to this. Last time we talked about these, didn't we? And how all of this was Carolina, and even a little bit over, even all. And then below South Carolina is Georgia. And see Florida? The Spanish had Florida. Florida belonged to the Spanish. But see all this? This all belongs to England. This all belongs to the British. This all belongs to them. And you're going to find out that today we're going to talk about how this came to become another colony. So before we do that, we're going through and we're just going to pick. Don't forget that New York used to be called New Amsterdam. The city, New York City, was New Amsterdam. And the whole colony of New York was originally called New Netherland. Make sure you remember that. Who was the one that was the Dutch governor before the British overtook them in New York? Peter Stuyvesant. Notice how it's spelled very different than it sounds. Peter Stuyvesant. And the fort that was in Delaware, the famous fort was called Fort Christina. Fort Christina in honor of Sweden's young queen, Christina. We went on. New Jersey got its name from what, guys? Sir George Carteret and Lord John Berkeley. Together, these guys, they helped with the land. The Quaker colony was, did you say Pennsylvania? You are correct. Who was the leader there? Yes, William Penn. What does Pennsylvania mean? Yes, Penn's Woods. The key city in Pennsylvania came to be, yes, Philadelphia. What does Philadelphia mean? The city of brotherly love. We went on to Virginia, and something special about Virginia is they had a special kind of government. They actually had men chosen by the people to make decisions for them. What is that called? Did you say representatives, men chosen by the people to make decisions for them? Remember that term. And they came up with this House of Burgess, this group of representatives. So the men were called representatives, but then together, this group of men that met together, these people that met together, these representatives was known as the House of Burgess, just like our representatives meet together in the Senate and House of Representatives today. It was called the House of Burgesses. House of Burgesses. Maryland, there was a George Calvert, whose title was Lord Baltimore. And then there was a Cecil Calvert, his son, who tried to get this going. Maryland was a colony mainly for what group of people? The Catholics. And remember, their settlement's name was called what? Saint Mary. Saint Mary is named after Mary. Think of Mary in the Bible, Maryland, Saint Mary, right? The boats or ships that brought them over were the Ark and the Dove, also in the Bible. Think of Noah's Ark and the dove that went out. We went on to the Carolinas, which became Carolinas, but at first it was all Carolina in 1650. And the settlers first came to Carolina from Virginia, and then later they separated them into North and South Carolina. South Carolina's first permanent settlement was what? Even today you can go visit it. And it was Charlestown. Charlestown, which became Charleston, South Carolina today. Just a quick review of some things before we go on, because this is what we're mainly going to talk about today. What happened? See, North Carolina, South Carolina, there's one more colony for us to talk about. It's one of my favorite ones too. And it's Georgia. Georgia, England's last colony. England, 1732. You know, it was pretty sad. I'm going to read a lot of it today, but I'm going to tell you some of this. It was so sad what was happening in England at that time. There were so many people in prison. There were so many poor people. And you know what? Not all of, they couldn't pay their bills. They were too poor. And they couldn't even get a job so that they could get the money to pay it. So there was no way out. And you know what happened if you couldn't pay your bills? You were put into debtor's prison. You were put into prison. And they would die in prison because it was so harsh, because it was so sad. The conditions were cold, dark, dirty. Diseases were rampant. They got the thing, what little things they had were stolen from them, often by the people in charge. Even their food were taken sometime, and then they would get sick from not having the nutrition and die. And there was a man named James Oglethorpe, and he felt so bad for those people that he fought for them. And it did help a little bit. It helped a little bit. The problems that were there, he fought for them, and finally many of them did get released. But even after they were released, guess what? They got released and they still couldn't find any jobs. They still didn't have any money, and they still couldn't feed their families. In the meantime, many of them died. And he said, if only these people could go to America, Oh, on page 66, I'm looking. This is what James Oglethorpe thought. If only these people could come to America, there would be plenty of work for them to do there. Oh, there was lots of work to do. Beginning of a new country that wasn't even quite a country yet. Still colonies. But there was a problem. How could these people earn enough money to pay for the passage for a ship to even get to America? Oh, he wanted to help them so much. So you know what he did? He decided to tell the king about it. And so he told the king, and you know what? The king liked what James Oglethorpe said. And he said, Spain has a colony in Florida. If England does not settle the land between Florida and South Carolina, Spain will. So imagine from the map, there's South Carolina, and then down here, there's Georgia. And I'm sorry, there's South Carolina, there's Florida, and in between is what would be Georgia. All this land, no one has it. Yes, this is a good idea, thought the king. If we don't take it, they will. So he let James Oglethorpe decide which people could go, and the English government gave the men that went $50,000 to use in sending the colonists to the New World. Oh, when other people heard about this, people started donating food. Churches gave money to help. A good thing was happening. And so this new colony would be called Georgia. Oh, named Georgia in honor of King George II. King George II. And James Oglethorpe went with this 114 colonists to this place that would be called Georgia in honor of King George II. And he became a good friend to the colonists. In fact, on board the ship, you know what he did? He started visiting the sick, visiting the ones that needed, and he helped them in whatever way he could. Finally, in February of 1733, Oglethorpe and his colonists arrived in Georgia, and Oglethorpe became the first governor of the colony, which would make sense. He's heading it up, he's in charge, he has a heart for it, and he was a wise, brave, kind governor. And he made many friendships, lasting friendships with the Indians, which is interesting. Whom he bought the land, another one that bought the land and was a friend with them. In fact, the Indians gave him some gifts. They gave him a buffalo robe lined with eagle feathers, saying, "The eagle signifies swiftness and the buffalo strength. The English are swift as a bird to fly over the vast seas and as strong as a beast before their enemies. The eagle's feathers are soft and signify love. The buffalo skin is warm and means protection. Therefore, love and protect our families." By giving him this gift, the Indians were saying love, symbolized by the eagle feather, protection, symbolized by the buffalo skin. And please be our friend and help love and protect us, because they knew it was coming. They knew that they were getting outpowered more and more quickly. Well, James Oglethorpe planned and directed the building of the first settlement in Georgia, which was named Savannah. Remember how I said every time we do a new settlement, the city or settlement that would become a town to know? Savannah was the settlement of Georgia, right? Providence was the settlement of Rhode Island, okay? And so on and so forth. Each one that we learn, and look, it's a bold term, so remember it. When Spain tried to destroy the new colony, Oglethorpe successfully led the colonists to victory. Without his aid, Georgia would probably have been destroyed. often he used his own money to see the needs of the colonists were met. He used his own money. He cared, didn't he? The Georgia colonists tried to grow olive trees and bred silkworms. We looked at that in science with the silk. And there was the cocoon of the silkworms eating the mulberry leaves, and they would take that, and the Chinese were the first to do that actually, and to weave a strong fiber from those threads of silk. They tried to grow them, but they didn't work there. These attempts failed. So soon, guess what they could grow? Rice became the important crop in the colony. And the first fine cotton was raised there with seed brought from India. So they're growing rice and they're growing the cotton. The cotton, they came from India. And remember, India is hot. And guess what? Georgia is hot, isn't it? Down south, very hot. And they can grow those warmer weather crops very well. Oglethorpe, wanting to give his colony a good start, said that neither rum nor slaves should be allowed there. That means drinking, liquor, the stuff that can make people drunk. He said, do not drink that and do not allow slaves. Meanwhile, he meets this man, John Wesley, was a godly man who preached the gospel to the colonists as well as the Indians. And he also agreed with Oglethorpe that the rum or drinking and the slaves should not be here, would not be good. And they tried to persuade the colonists that to not do those things. And for a while they listened, but guess what? Eventually they got the rum and they got some slaves. And so it wasn't good. Here is Savannah, the first settlement in Georgia. So here's what Savannah first looked like. And there's water. And there's where the trees are cleared away for our town. Well, they got their slavery and they got their rum. Along that time comes George Whitefield. Now, if you know anything about George Whitefield, he was an English preacher. He came all the way to America to preach. He had this booming, loud voice that could be heard far away. And he preached to the people in the colony in 1738. And the thing you should really know about him, you know what he did? He started the first orphanage in America near Savannah. An orphanage meaning all these boys and girls that have no moms, that have no dads, that have nowhere to go. He started a place to help them. So they're no longer just on the streets, where something could be done for them. So he started that first orphanage. Oglethorpe gave up Georgia to the king in 1752, went back to England. He was always interested in the settlement he had founded. And since he lived to be very old, he saw it join the other colonists in 1776 to become part of the United States of America. Remember 1776? It's where we have the Declaration of Independence and the colonies saying we are going to be separate and independent, our own country. Many people won land, the last part of this chapter. Let's just read this together. It's so good. We have seen how each of the 13 original colonies was founded. It took 125 years in all for the colonists to be formed. Now that may seem like a long time, but it takes time for a new nation to get started in a wilderness. Such an important event does not happen often in history. Many different kinds of people were in America now. There were people from all different religions: separatists, Puritans, Quakers, Baptists, Lutherans, Mennonites, Episcopalians, Catholics, and others. These people were learning to get along with each other and were developing the important ideas of freedom of religion and separation of church and state. These ideas were new to most of the world, and they would help to make America the kind of country where the Bible could be preached freely and have a great influence on the lives of the people. So all these different religions could come and experience that. Many people came to America looking for a chance to work hard and do their best at jobs of their choice. This is an important part of the American way of life. Most of the original settlers were English, but America soon became home for people from Germany, Holland, France, Ireland, Switzerland, Scotland, and other countries, not to mention the ones that were already here. All of these different kinds of people would learn to respect each other and look upon themselves as one people, America. You know what? No matter where someone's from, no matter what country they came from to come to America, no matter what culture they are of, no matter who you are or who your friends are, if they've come to America, we can be called Americans. We're one people. Let's not look like many may do today, all these different groups. Let's be one. We're simply Americans. Well, I hope you learned something today. And next time you can be looking at the chapter checkup now and see if you know the answer to any of those questions. And I'll ask you those the next time as we review this chapter. You take care. I hope you've learned something today. Remember, learn something new every day. Bye.